You're listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
For some of you Oakwood heads, Pine Forest heads that are out there listening to our podcast, here's a topic that, has come up when I used to get my hair cut. And my boy Myron Evans used to cut my hair. We would always talk about people that we've hooped with over the years, Pine Forest, Oakwood, who's the best, who has talent. Many of you know about Oakwood intramurals. That's a very popular, for those that don't understand Oakwood intramurals, I'll let Michael talk a little bit about his experience. But for those of you that don't know the Seventh-day Adventist Church, it's like the bizarre world. So you go to an Adventist school like Oakwood College, now Oakwood University, where both Michael and myself went to. The people who are popular and get the most pub and the most press are not the athletes. They're actually people that can preach and sing. You wouldn't understand it unless you've seen it for yourself, because it doesn't really make sense even to people that are at the school there. One of the things that was going on back when Michael and myself were at Oakwood, intramurals, which is the intersectional basketball where, all your teams kind of click up. They get their own individuals. You play with some of your boys. You got a crew from Ohio. You play with that crew. The Miami crew plays together. The crew from New York City plays together. The crew from L.A. plays together. The talent and the actual interest level in the games for intramurals was higher at Oakwood than it was for our actually little, pathetic varsity program at the time. Now, since then, they've hired some better coaches and invested a little bit into the program, and they have a better actual competitive sports program. But, I'm curious from your perspective, Michael, you were a point guard. You ran with some pretty good squads. We've always talked about the concept of how good is the talent, kind of not in just, Oakwood, but just at kind of some of the small, not just SDA, but Christian university structure, small schools like that. Are you really running into like true legitimate talent? Or is it just a bunch of 5'10" guys who are pretty good playing against other 5'10" guys? I play with some guys, I'm not going to start throwing names out, but I played with guys over the years that it would seem that they have some D1 level talent, but it's easy when everyone on the court is 6'1" or shorter. So the conversation that comes up repeatedly, with the worst player in the NBA, when I think of the worst player in the NBA, I think of Jacques Vaughn. I don't know if he's still in the NBA. I think he's a coach now. But he was kind of the flagship for someone who was in the NBA but terrible, if that's possible. How much would the worst player in the NBA score at Oakwood? Would they get 60? Would they get 70? Would they get shut down? What do you think, especially you being more of a ball player than I, Michael, someone that really handled the rock. What skills do you see at kind of the Christian level, the Oakwoods of the world? What skills do you see that translate into a higher level elite game, at least on the scoring end?
Well, honestly, I won't say there's no talent coming through those schools. Like, I've gone to school at Oakwood. I've gone to Columbia Union, now Washington Adventist University. I was at Andrews. Through the process, there were a couple people who I would call real ballers. But there are also, I've also played ball in a lot of other places, a lot of other gyms. Grew up with a couple guys who played pro ball overseas.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know some of the same people that intersect. You grew up with Tommy. Didn't you play ball with Howard and kind of that crew, that Villanova crew? Those guys are pretty good.
Every summer
Howard
we used
Brown,
to play.
right. how far ahead would you say, Howard Brown, if I remember correctly, I remember that your mom used to take us at Pine Forest. We used to go to some of the games, like me, you, Josh, the whole crew, that whoever could fit in the car, we would go and watch Howard Brown and Tommy play. And they played for Pottstown High. Howard Brown was about 6'4", 6'5", could handle the rock, could shoot. He went on to play for Villanova. Would you say that he's significantly better than the typical dude that plays at Oakwood?
The typical guy that plays at Oakwood? Yeah.
I mean, the typical good ball player that plays at Oakwood, not me.
If Howard Brown played at Oakwood intramurals at his peak and played seriously, he'd probably average 45 a game. And Howard is not a guy, and Howard had a 10-day contract in the NBA. His pro career was overseas. So, we're talking about guys who, you're saying, are actually having NBA careers. Now we're asking how much would they score in a game? That's probably is dependent on the player. If you're a big man, it's different than if you're a 5'11" guard, just for the sheer fact of being able to try to compete with you and guard you. But
if you're a 5'11" guard, you should be able to play 3-point line and just hit threes, because it's a half court. It's a very short 60-foot court at Oakwood.
That was my next point. I've been on the court with guys who were nowhere near pros. Like, when I was at CUC, now Washington Adventist, I got to get in the habit of saying that, when during the summer, because it was a small private gym, there were guys from all the local schools, not necessarily Adventist schools, from Bowie State, Maryland, guys home from Virginia Union that would come to CUC's gym and ball in the summer. There were guys, so it was all basically D1 and D2. For those of you who don't know, CUC, Washington Adventist, is an NCAA Division II school. So it was all guys in there who were D1, D2, couple of D3 schools, but all athletes, college ball players. None of these guys were anywhere near going pro.
Right.
And I can think of 2 or 3 guys who literally, they stepped across half court. You better be guarding them or they'll be laughing at you. They'll shoot the J and it's wet.
Right.
These aren't guys who are anywhere near being pros. I don't think guys realize how good pros are sometimes.
I agree. Anyone who's in the league, even the worst player in the league, has a level of J work that you're not going to see at a typical high school or a typical mid-level college. You're just not going to see that. People in the NBA can shoot that. And they're 6'7".
And you got to figure, if you're going to get non-NBA competition, your confidence level is way up. You're playing nice and free and relaxed, and everything's going in.
So you're saying that you think that someone coming in, a low-level guy, let's say Austin Rivers, even though he put up some pretty decent minutes last night, so that might not be a good example. So someone who's a lower-level person, a DNP, someone that doesn't play that much, someone that's always got the sweatpants and the long pants and the long sleeve tee on because they're not playing. You're saying that they get 45 to 50 a night, guaranteed.
At least.
See, I think that they get like 80. Because I scored 20 points in intramurals at Oakwood, and I've seen you put up 30 in A-League and intramurals at Oakwood. And I definitely don't consider myself to be a ball player. I'm not going to speak for you. If I can get 20, someone in the league should get 4 or 5 times that much. They should get as many points as the clock will allow them to get.
But that's why I say it depends on the position.
Okay.
Like, if I'm somebody who actually likes to be a distributor and throw pretty passes, I might be happy with 50 and 20 assists.
Right.
But if I'm a real scorer, I might just go for 80, 85 and last because I'm shooting J's and everybody.